Good afternoon, and a very warm welcome to the 2025 Annual General Meeting of the Wine Society. And it's wonderful to see so many members attending this meeting. It's an extraordinary record attendance. 1,188 members and guests were registered to attend in the hall, and I'm told that so far there are over 700 and people still coming in, but we decided to start on time. There are also 111 online, so far with us, 827 members. Thank you all very much for attending, wherever you are. And I've been asked to say to those in the hall that no fire alarms are planned this evening, and in the event of an emergency, the Barbican hosts and staff will lead everyone to the appropriate assembly point. This year, as you see, we have the whole of the committee up here so that you can see everyone and know who to talk to and ask questions of later. And of course, beside me are Steve Finlan, our Chief Executive, Emily Roskilly, our Chief Financial Officer, and Pierre Mansour, our Director of Wine. I'm going to begin by saying a few words about the last financial year, then this year, and then the future, and then move to questions and then to the formal resolutions. And following that and before the tasting, Pierre will say a few words on a couple of wine topics and about this evening's tasting. Last year was the 150th anniversary of the Wine Society, and what a year it was. During the financial year ending January 2025, we offered members some 6,300 different wines from 34 countries, made 32 en primeur and 80 first release offers comprising some 750 individual wines, released 175 museum release wines, and sold just under 11.5 million bottles of wine to over 181,000 members. To celebrate its 150th, the Society produced 2 specially created collections of wines, 29 anniversary label wines and 48 Generation Series wines, which had been in the making by our buyers for up to a decade or more. During the year, there were some 160 events, tastings, lunches, dinners, in 55 different towns and cities across the UK, attended by over 20,000 members and guests, and by growers and suppliers from 285 wineries from 38 winemaking regions. Okay. Is that better? Fine, sorry. The events received universal praise and acclaim from members, guests, the media, and our winemakers across the globe. 1.5 centuries, a recognition of the very special relationship between the Society and its members, through good times and bad times, wars and financial crises, good vintages and not so good vintages. And throughout that time, the Society has continually created extraordinarily deep, personal and long-lasting relationships with the very best growers and suppliers all over the world, bringing their outstanding wines to our members. It is a very special organisation. I called the annual review, the Society and its members, a lifelong relationship. When you join the Society, you become an owner of the business, not simply a customer. You join for life, and since many members pass the share on to relatives and others after their death, rather than just a single lifelong relationship, it can transcend generations. The heart of the relationship is that the Society does not exist separately from its members. Members built and continue to build it, and members run it for members and only for members. There are no third-party shareholders to whom the Society is accountable or has to pay a dividend. The Society can therefore focus solely on wine, value and service, and can put every penny it gets back into the business. So our goal is not maximising profit. It's maximising member satisfaction and experience. That is the most important indicator of our success. And I'm pleased to say that member satisfaction during the year was consistently at an all-time high, 94%, and 87% on the two methods we use to measure that. As we look ahead, we must also ensure that the Society continues to have a strong and stable membership to buy sufficient wine to cover our costs and service and infrastructure. That means, since all our members reduce their spending over time, continually attracting new members. And last year was another good year for that, with just under 17,000 joining the Society. Notwithstanding the very challenging external environment, our 150th year was also a very successful year for the Society. Revenues and sales were up 4% on the previous year, and we ended the year with gross revenues of just under £155 million. Sales of regular and museum release wines bought and available for delivery to members in the year increased by over 7% to 130.3 million. Sales of en primeur and first release wines bought in previous years but becoming available to members last year, which is when we must account for them, were at £16 million, some 12.5% down on the previous year, with a 32.5% decrease in en primeur sales, somewhat compensated for by an 84.4% increase in first release sales. The number of members buying from the Society in the year increased by some 2% to over 181,000, and at the end of the year we had a cash balance of £15.5 million. We ended the year with a small operating loss, which, perhaps counterintuitively to some, since we don't seek to make a profit for the sake of it, and we're doing everything we can to keep prices as low as possible, is exactly in line with the relationship between the Society and its members. After adding bank interest and other income, we had an after-tax accounting profit of £144,000. Our balance sheet remains strong and our cash position healthy. So this year we believe the Society is in good financial health, but we are extremely aware of the external economic challenges that face all of us. We're seeing cost increases across our entire supply chain, the cost of the wines and the cost of getting the wines to Stevenage and to your home, and also in our own operating costs. And this year also sees a significant increase in costs we have to pay to the government. The actual cost will depend on exactly what we sell, etc., and believe it or not, some elements are still being clarified by the government. But we are budgeting for an increase of £6.1 million, from £53.9 million last year to £60 million payable to the government this year. I see and talk to Steve very frequently, and I think his favourite phrase is, "It's a struggle, Alan, a struggle." And it is. It's therefore been and remains a difficult year to forecast and budget for. We always budget to make as little surplus as we can, commensurate with ensuring we have enough cash to cover our operating costs and necessary investments, so that our margins can stay as low as possible and members can benefit from the lowest possible prices. And that seems even more important this year in the face of the significant cost increases and the cost of living challenges faced by everyone. While, therefore, we will continue with important infrastructure investments, particularly in relation to IT and a new warehouse management system, we will defer some planned investments that will not have an immediate payback, so as to be able to maintain those low prices. The Society's pricing model is a key part of our relationship with our members. We sell our wines at the lowest possible margin to cover our costs and investments. And, as you know, notwithstanding massive rises in duty and other costs, we have held prices on the vast majority of our wines for more than 18 months and for the whole of the last financial year. This has had a significant impact on our margins, but we wanted to demonstrate to members how our mutual model really does create a true relationship for life between us and our members, and a real difference between us and other retailers. We run on a weekly basis a comparison basket of like-for-like wines with two close competitors from which we know our members also buy wine. There's usually a significant gap between the prices of our basket and theirs, and holding prices has made that gap much bigger. This comparison also includes their so-called discounts and excludes delivery charges. So since we deliver all orders free, the difference is likely to be even greater. It is always worth comparing the actual cost of a bottle reaching your home between the society and others. Sadly, continuing to hold all prices in the face of the significant cost increases is simply not possible. It would reduce our margins to such an extent that we could not cover our costs. Prices, therefore, have had to go up on many wines. However, we decided that we should again do what we could to lessen the impact on members, and so decided that we would continue to hold prices on all society and exhibition label wines, because they are the most popular wines with members and are bought by the largest spread of members. This is another counterintuitive step, but one we believe will benefit the greatest number of members, and we will continue to do this for as long as we are able. This will again impact our margins, and to balance that, we would again ask members to buy from us as much of their wines as possible, not to drink more, but to give us more of their wine spend. Okay, maybe to drink more. No, so that the increased volume may go towards countering the reduction in margin. Buying from us regularly is the most important thing a member can do for the society. That is their contribution to the lifelong relationship. In challenging circumstances, therefore, we had a very good 2024. At the heart of our business, of course, are our people. And our success and member satisfaction with the society depends to an enormous degree on how you are treated by and the service you get from them. Each member of the Society's team played their part in our success. Every time I go to Stevenage, it's remarkable how vibrant the atmosphere is and how much everyone seems to be enjoying it. And that is down to every one of them. I wrote separately to all the staff, expressing appreciation and thanks for what they did over the year, but wanted to reiterate that publicly today. And in connection with this, I thought I might share with you an email I received 10 days ago from a member, Simon Clements, who said, "I said this a few years ago, and I will say it again, and maybe even again. I wanted to affirm how wonderfully helpful, polite, and patient your staff are, not just in taking orders, but in filling in the gaps and finding the bottle we want. This happened only last week when one of your staff found a bottle of Macon not on your list. I was so pleased as it represented a holiday there once upon a time. Enough said, and I will say no more now, but wanted my continuous satisfaction flagged at the AGM." We live in an ever-changing environment. At the June committee meeting, we reviewed the Society's annual sustainability report. I suspect many people would inwardly groan at the thought of wading through pages of sustainability stuff. It may be hard to believe, but it is absolutely absorbing and astonishingly inspiring. And if you want to discover in very practical terms what, and more importantly, why we're doing what we are, take an hour and read through it. It's on the Sustainability Hub on the website. It will definitely surprise and hopefully inspire you as well. You cannot read about the climate and nature programme and not feel with part of the growers that have applied for and received grants to help them improve their vineyards. And we don't do these things just to be altruistic. Our actions save us and our winemakers money. Environmental costs are an increasingly significant part of our and their businesses. They improve our relationships with our winemakers and result in better wine allocations, allowing us to continue to offer the best wines in the world. And they help our winemakers tackle the environmental and commercial challenges they are facing so they can continue to stay in business and provide the styles of wines our members love for years to come. With an outlook that focuses on the continuing ability to source world-class wines for members, the Society, perhaps unlike ordinary commercial organisations, really does want to be around in another 150 years and wants to ensure that our growers will still be producing extraordinary wine when we celebrate our 300th anniversary. We're accustomed, and hardly even talk about them anymore, to receive awards for our wines and our buyers. And I'm delighted to say we're now being honoured with awards from independent bodies for our sustainability work. At the Wine Buyer at the Wine Buyers Awards, the buyers, of course, won the Best Off-Trade Buying Team of the Year, but also picked up the Sustainable Wine Buying Team of the Year. We retained the title of Green Retailer of the Year at the Drinks Business Awards and also received the award for Green Packaging of the Year. But perhaps even more impressively, the Society was named Retail Brand of the Year at the ED Net Zero Awards. This is an incredible achievement, a national award across all retail industries and sectors in the UK, and we were up against organisations many times our size. So to our future, having just celebrated the first 150 years of the relationship between the Society and its members, it has given us enormous confidence in the strength of those relationships and also the strength of our partnerships with the very best growers and suppliers around the world. However, as I've said, we live in a time of constant change. The climate is changing and is having a direct and immediate impact on growers and the wines we love. The business environment is changing, including now artificial intelligence, and attitudes to alcohol are changing among some. The Society has therefore constantly to evolve to ensure we are able to adapt to these changes so that we can continue to offer you the very best wines, prices, service and experience, and to keep up with and surpass the very best that anyone else can offer you. Change can sometimes feel uncomfortable and carry the fear of losing something. But, as De Lampedusa said, if we want things to stay as they are, things will have to change. However, the key aspects of your society will remain our foundation. We are a mutual, built and run by members, for members. We're a very modern and very professional mutual, but based on 1.5 centuries of relationships and principles. We believe in relationships and have members, not customers. We do what others can't or won't because we don't seek profit. Our only goal is member satisfaction. We want to champion the joy of good wine for today's members and tomorrow's members. We have the best buyers, sourcing only what they believe in, and we provide members with the highest quality, world-class wines at the lowest prices and best value, and with outstanding service and a memorable experience. We will do everything we can, and we hope that members will do everything they can to ensure that society and our members continue our very special lifelong relationship. Thank you. That's all I wanted to say as an introduction. Let us now move to any questions you may have, and let me explain how that will work. Those in the room who want to ask a question, please raise your hands, and we have a team with microphones who will come to you when I identify you. I should say that we've been warned there may be a little interference with the mics upstairs. We've tested them earlier and we don't believe there will be, but just in case, there are 2 fixed mics, and if there is any interference, you can either wend your way down to the fixed mic or the Wine Society rep can bring your question to the fixed mic to give us. Last year, the light shining on has made it difficult to see people in the hall, so we've asked for the lights to be up a little bit so we can definitely see you. But if I do ignore anyone, it's not deliberate. This is being recorded and will be available on the website for everyone to see, so please give your name and speak into the microphone so that your question is also able to be heard. Those online can put questions by following the instructions on the slide which appeared before the meeting and which is appearing now. You may either type a question, and a team behind the scenes will transfer the questions to my screen here and will attempt to group any similar questions together, so you may not hear your exact question. Or you can ask to speak directly to the meeting by selecting the Request to Speak button on your screen, when you will be placed in a queue to ask the question directly to the meeting. Again, please give your name. This year, as last year, we've provided members with the ability to email questions in advance of the meeting. We were able to answer a number directly, and there are 26 questions which I've grouped into 15 categories, which we hope to be able to answer today. Whether we manage to answer all of those, as well as questions in the hall online, I don't know. But if we don't, we will try and answer those questions we've not been able to get to after the AGM. And if you're unable to ask a question today because of time pressures, please feel free to send the question in afterwards. Could I now ask for questions? There's a gentleman over there in the middle of the hall here. Before I come to you, I'm going to ask a question that I've received online. I'm going to ask Steve to answer this. and it is about delivery. In fact, we received 6 questions on delivery, from disappointment, sometimes with DHL, to asking about the availability of our vans and why there was not greater availability, and the economics between our vans and DHL, and a question as to perhaps different delivery options. If you live in a place where a Wine and Society van is not, could you pay for a special service extra in order to get the best service possible? So Steve, would you like to start with?
Yes, thank you, Alan, and lots of questions. Let me talk a little bit about DHL first, because I do get a lot of contact quite naturally from members who are frustrated with their DHL experience. It's a problematic industry, and since COVID, there has been a bit of an epidemic of drop and go, failing to knock on doors, failing to find safe places or take on board delivery instructions. We use DHL because actually by using one carrier, we've improved our performance significantly over the years by doing that. And Ofcom do an annual survey on carriers, and DHL are equal first with Amazon. So they do an extremely good job in a difficult industry. And I'm sometimes asked by members why we don't use another carrier. Actually, we don't use another carrier because at the moment delivery would be worse, not better. But it is incredibly frustrating. Just if only 1% of our deliveries go awry, that's more than 10,000 members who feel frustrated. And in some cases, it may be members being frustrated more than once. What we do is work with DHL to try to improve the situation, and we do that at quite a detailed level. And we've had a very good reaction from DHL, who've put more measures in place to hold individual drivers accountable. So it's a problem. It's one we're working with, but we're still confident that we're using the best bulk carrier in the industry. For our own vans, we've increased the fleet to 35. And we get to about 80% of postcodes, slightly more than 80% of postcodes. I get asked quite a lot from some members believing that actually the own van is cheaper. It's not. It's about a third to 40% more expensive than using DHL for a delivery. So we have to be extremely careful, because increasing the number of vans beyond a certain point becomes very, very uneconomic for the society. But we continue to push that, hence the reason that we increased from 27 to 35 vans a couple of years ago. So we'll continue to do that, and we'll continue to evaluate whether there are better options for members, either not served by an own van or alternatively just in terms of having a more premium service. And we'll continue to think about the future of our van fleet as well, in the context of more members holding more reserves with us. So all of these things we recognise, we do understand, but we're confident, I'm very confident in my operations team, that they're looking at these issues each and every day.
Thank you, Steve. And the gentleman over there who first put his hand up. The microphone's coming to you from, there we go.
Hello. Hello, Alan. You mentioned that you had a couple of competitors. I don't know who they are, but they're probably not the competitors that my wife deals with when she does her weekly supermarket shopping. And she's recently come across a couple of wonderful wines that we drink quite a lot of, and which my friends also like. How do we go about getting in touch with you and your organisation and saying, we've found these lovely wines, what is your comparable wine in the Wine Society?
Yeah, I mean, either Pierre or I could answer this, but what I would say is that member services is always the best way to contact us initially, but our emails are on the website as well. So please do send any of those recommendations to either me or to Pierre, and we will always follow them up.
In fact, I was going to ask Pierre to answer the next question, so you might add that onto yours, because we've had, from previous questions, have asked 3 questions on wine. One, Why do we have screw caps when most wine enthusiasts would like to take a cork out of the bottle? 2, why don't we have more orange wines and also more pet nat wines? So, Pierre, do you want to take those 3?
Yes, I will take those. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. By the way, we do take any members that write in. If it goes through to member services, it comes to the buying team and for specifics. We get quite a lot of member suggestions after the summer holidays, funnily enough, from some of the more Mediterranean countries in Europe. On screw caps, so about 20% of the wines that we sell are under screw cap. And actually that's a figure that's stayed fairly static since 2015. We don't instruct our suppliers to use one closure over another. There are various closures that are available. Now for the complicated bit, because behind this question was the sustainability credentials or the sort of carbon credentials of screw cap over cork. And it's quite complicated. So there are trade-offs for every type of closure. So I'll just take 2 of the key closures to indicate that. So natural corks do have a lower carbon footprint, but are not possible for you to recycle them anywhere in the UK. So their recyclability is very low, although we do now offer a service to members via our delivery drivers where you can actually send your corks back to us and we then recycle them. Screw caps, on the other hand, made from aluminium, and they are widely and infinitely recyclable. But they may have a higher initial carbon footprint. So it's quite complicated. The data available to us on the sustainability credentials of closures is quite limited. And what we are doing is, as a member of something called the Sustainable Wine Roundtable Group, which is an industry group, we're working through them and hoping that us and other retailers who are members to get a bit more information there around the different closures. Orange wines. So the question was really, why don't we have more orange wines? So we carry a range, but actually, admittedly, it's really difficult for members to find orange wines on our website. So at the moment, for example, you can't filter by orange wine. You have to rely on the wine name having the word orange in it. The good news is that prompted by this question, this was a question that came in advance, actually we are going to be introducing that functionality imminently. So members will be able to easily find orange wines. We've got about 12 orange wines available in our range, and actually by total coincidence, we've got an orange wine on the tasting tonight. And I suspect it will split the room because it's Marmite.
And pet nat.
Oh, yes, pet nat. We do a few pet nats, and these are wines that are made, the sparkling wines that are made naturally. We have a couple, but we do have a gap from the Loire, which we're actively looking to fulfill.
Thank you. There's a gentleman right in the middle there. He's got his hand up. The mic's coming to you.
Good evening. I have a question about the free UK delivery policy, which guarantees free... Can you hear me now? That's better. I have a question about the Society's free UK delivery policy, which guarantees, and I quote, free delivery anywhere in the UK, whatever the quantity or spend. How does the Society seek to justify this policy, which seems to me to be completely at odds with just about every other UK retailer, and appears to me to be both financially and environmentally unsustainable? It encourages orders as small as 1 bottle. It penalises responsible members who order by the case. It raises overall delivery costs, about which you've already spoken, and it increases the carbon emissions associated with the final delivery to customers in a way which I believe is completely incompatible with the Society's stated environmental objectives. When does the Society intend to restore a minimum order size or introduce a delivery charge that reflects actual delivery costs? In doing so, it would restore fairness between members, and fairness was, after all, one of the founding principles of those who founded the Society 150 years ago.
Thank you. I suspect you're Marshall Hall. Didn't give your name at the beginning. And also, Philip Edmondson has also asked a question about whether we think it's been a success, which I should say we do. But Steve, why don't you talk to that?
So a little bit of context. We work hard as a mutual to benefit members. And offering free delivery fits into our strategic objectives of value for money, service and experience, and great wine. So when we could afford to do it, which we can, we decided to initially make the move to free delivery and then for every order, every size. And it's important for me to say at this stage, having done that, we have very, very few instances where members order 1 bottle, 2 bottles, 3 bottles. In fact, our bottles per order have only gone down by half a bottle since we introduced this. So members behaving in a very responsible way around it. The reason that we have done this, free delivery, I think, stands for itself. We want to provide value for money. Small orders slightly different. So we have a lot of younger members, particularly, who are more space constrained than some of us are lucky to be. And they use this as a virtual wine rack. And so they will take only what they need for the next week or sometimes weekend. It's very popular on that basis to be able to do it. We have members who want to try before they buy, particularly with finer wines. And again, we've seen, I'll quote new members again, with all of the new members that have joined us this year, their average bottle price is £2 more than it is for the average member. And a large number of them are using this as a try before you buy service. Third reason is gifting. We are unbelievably good value for gifts by not charging for delivery. And gifting is an incredibly good acquisition tool for us. So members sending to members and then receiving back. So what we've seen as a result of this is more members buying more wine more often. So actually for the Society, it's a really good thing. Now, sustainability. Sustainability isn't black and white. We have a business to run and we have to make sure that we're making sustainable choices. So our emissions as a result of small orders have increased carbon dioxide per tonne from 0.23 kilograms to 0.24 kilograms. So it's tiny. Our emissions from last mile are very small compared with others, and they're completely dwarfed by us being able to lightweight bottles, using our Climate and Nature Fund to encourage regenerative viticulture and soil health, thus improving our carbon scores towards net zero. So it becomes a question of choices. We believe we've made the right choices. I fully respect members that don't feel that we've made the right choices. But having said that, certainly from a fairness perspective, it's a really difficult question to answer. We've been very fair to those members that live in flats in London as a consequence of doing it. And I think where I would go next, and we have talked about this and we'll try and find the financial headroom to do it, is to actually incentivize members that make bigger orders rather than to penalise those members buying smaller orders.
I should also say for those, I mentioned the annual sustainability report in my introductory speech. On page 22, there is it's just 5 or 6 paragraphs explaining in detail how we reached the conclusion that our carbon footprint has only gone up by 0.01% as a result. And even then, one doesn't know the background to whether people are ordering fewer bottles because we're offering it, or whether actually the trend, which it is for people to offer in every part of the online market to buy less more often. But page 22 of our annual sustainability report will show the carbon emission impact. I'm not sure if I see any more hands up, but before I do that, I'd like to ask Emily to answer. Sorry. Okay, so can we come to you in a second? And I'll come to Emily first, because we've been asked, which I thought might be interesting, people, why our administrative expenses seemed to go up by 12.3% last year, which I can happily say is not quite all the story, but Emily.
Thank you for the question. So the cost of doing business in this country has gone up significantly over the past few years, and the society has been in no way immune to those increases. I will say firstly, though, that in a year where sales increase, which they did for the society, you typically do expect to see costs increase. So I find it useful to not only look at the increase year on year, but also to look at the movement in the ratio of cost to sales, which did go up as well by about 1.4%, and I'll talk through some of the main cost areas that have driven that increase. So firstly, our salary and costs and wage costs. We were all impacted by the cost of living crisis over the past couple of years, and we were incredibly pleased to be able to award our employees with a 5% pay rise, which was rolled out at the beginning of last year. We also invested in a couple of our teams. Our buying team, we had 3 new buyers, and as part of the transition with the older buyers, the outgoing buyers, I should say, we had a long transition so that responsibilities for regional buying was able to be passed on in a really smooth way. And I know that both the former buyers and the new buyers really appreciated that overlap. We also invested in our merchandising team, and we've seen a huge benefit in working capital and in our stock management, so really pleased about that. Secondly, business rates. We saw business rates more than double year on year, which added £700,000 to our bottom line. I'm really pleased to report that we have since challenged that part of that increase, and this year we've received a partial refund that will record in the accounts to the year to January 26. We also had the 150th celebration last year, and the cost of putting on those events was greater than the cost last year that we didn't see. Those costs were, of course, offset by the sales that we received on both the wine ranges that we released and on the ticket sales, but nonetheless do increase costs on the face of the P&L. I would love to be able to say that those cost increases are all one-offs, but unfortunately there is more to come, and the cost of doing business just continues to soar, with a lot of the significant cost burden actually coming this year. We will, of course, continue to do all we can to control those costs and keep pricing as low as possible for members. Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. There's 2 upstairs, so I'm going to go to number 2 first. Microphone 2.
Hello. My name's Nick John. I live in Wiltshire. I just wanted to ask a bit more about the DHL contract that you have. I myself work in operations, so I understand where you're coming from. Can you tell us how long the contract is for, and when the renewal date is, and what their performance is? And the second part of my question is, the biggest concern I have about DHL is when I get some of my wines out of reserve, not only are they very expensive, but if something happens to them, that's it. I know you'll reimburse me with the money or whatever, but if they're broken, I can't go and get that bottle of wine anywhere else because it's all exhausted. So I'd be grateful if you could answer those.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, so very simple with DHL. We renew annually and therefore constantly review their performance. I can't remember the month it's in. I think it's October that we renew ahead of the Christmas trading period. I think your question about reserves is one that worries me. I don't like to see reserves always going through a DHL depot. Our own van fleet is used a lot for reserves, and when I talked about some work that we have to do to decide what we do with our own fleet, reserves would be high on that list, and it would be high on the list in terms of potentially finding alternative ways to get reserves to members, even if it was a paid-for service. So we are looking at all those options, but it might not be a really quick resolution.
Thank you. I can't see the number up there. What? Number 1. Microphone number 1.
My name is Henry Chua, member. Just before I start my comment and question, can I just rejoin the comments about delivery at all costs and all sizes? Perhaps the society might like to consider to incentivize members to take delivery with more cases, because I believe society gives a £3.50 discounts when you collect yourself. Perhaps, you know, if a member would buy 3 cases or more, after 3 cases or 5 cases, any more cases, get the £3.50 discounts to encourage members to have larger deliveries as well as improve sustainability. But now back to my my comments. I note that this year, the society is charging members who bring a guest £15. Although membership of the society is £40, but in practical terms, it's really £20 after you buy if you take a first order. So if members wish to bring guests, it might be better for the guest to become a member. And long term, you know, there's no increase in purchase if you're in the same household, but you get all this free attendance.
So I can't work out whether to agree with you or not, but I absolutely, if any guest wants to become a member, please sign up. We put it up to £15. The last time the guest ticket was put up was in 2010, so 15 years ago. And the cost now of putting on our tastings, especially one for, I mean, this will be a record tasting for us with over 1,000 people here, is £15 is just very, very good value for that. And of course, they also get the benefit of being at the AGM and hearing what we all say. Well, then maybe that should be an additional taking off.
Of the tasting at £15, what I can share with you is that last year I met a member, or rather 2 members, who actually adopted what I've just suggested of becoming the second member in the household instead of paying the guest fee. But now to my questions. But before that, the preamble. The society is very good and leads in many aspects of the industry, such as the sustainability we are pursuing. What I'd like to find out from you, Chair, is how many members in the committee have served for 8 years or more? Because I recall the last chair being so long you even lose count of the number of years. And the reason why I raise is we are not a company, nor are we a charity. If you look at the charities, the Charity Good Governance Guide, it's recommended that trustees for charities should not serve more than 9 years. If you look at listed companies, the Good Governance Guide on that front is again 9 years. So how many members on that committee in front of us have served for 8 years? Because
so I can tell you the answer exactly. The average time... No, I'm going to answer your question, please. The average time on the committee of all the members is 6 years at the moment. And the average age, if it's relevant, is 55, which I thought was interesting. The 2 people have spent more than 8 years. I have spent more than 8 years, and Ken Brown has spent 9 years on the committee. Apart from that, everyone else is under 8 years. What I would say, and actually I think this is very important, is that you're right, we're not a charity, and we're not a corporation. A mutual, a proper mutual, not a cooperative, a mutual which only has members as its customers, who only sells to its own members, is a very rare animal. Everyone who comes on this committee, and including me when I joined, everyone who comes onto the executive takes quite a time to get out of that mindset that what you're trying to do is get a bottom line, to make a profit. And everyone who comes on the committee says, after about 2 years, you're just beginning to realize in your soul what this society is all about. And when we talk, I know a number of members who sometimes find this strange, but all we do is how will this affect members? What is the experience this will give members? What do members want? And when Steve and Emily, as they always do, say, and the answer is yes, but what do members want? How is this society going to still be here in 150 years? We don't want profit. We want enough to make investments, to make us better, and to pay our overheads. We want to have the best possible experience for every member. And it is something that takes time to acquire. Now, I'm not saying that means we should be on here for 100 years. Sarah was chair for 12 years. I've only been chair for 4 years. So I must have 20 more to go so far. But it's not the same as a corporation. I firmly believe that. But at the moment, only 2 people have 8 years, and the average is 6. So before I go up there, there is one question I really must answer that's come in beforehand. And I wanted this to be an AGM question proper. And it's about inter-member reserves transfers. And I'm going to have to give some background for members generally, since I suspect that most will not have heard of this before. There's always been the odd request for a transfer of reserves from one family member to another. Or on occasion, one member buys for them and another because in an en-primeur acquisition, they don't want the minimum number on offer. And in a very society way, when that's happened, we've just gone with it. However, we now have an online society community, which is open to members of the society. You can register and join. There's a link on the top right-hand corner of the website. And community members are very engaged. They obviously like the society, and they share their views and comments on wine and food, travel, other things. But over the past 18 months or so, some members on the community have offered wines that they have in their reserves for sale to other members. They reach an agreement on price and payment, which all happens outside, and then they ask the society to transfer wines from their reserves account to the transferees. And in a very society way, when that began to happen, member services generally did it. But as it became more common, more used, more active, we realized that we had to sit down and work through what that actually meant for the society, to sort out whether we could and should facilitate these transfers. After all, we're here to source and sell wines to members, not necessarily help members sell their wines to others. And then if we could do it, how the process would work. Now, instinctively, we think this is a good idea. Members are engaged, they're active, they're participating in the society. So if we sensibly can, we want to do it. And there's no sign at the moment that the members selling those wines are trying to make a profit from them. They've got too many reserves of one particular wine or another, and they're trying to see if anyone else would be interested in them. But there are a number of issues. Actually, we identified, it seemed very strange, I think, to those on the community who have been doing this. We identified 14 issues, and we've had to work through those, and that has required time, and also we will have to take some outside advice on one of them, which will cost us money, obviously. Sadly, not an insignificant sum of money. So at the beginning of this year, we said we would stop facilitating these transfers until we had worked through the issues. Of course, that was followed by our year end in January, then the preparation of the financial statements, and of course, carrying on business as usual. So although the committee and the executive have discussed this in depth on many occasions, it's still not finalised, mainly because we've been very busy on the society's main business, which always takes priority, but partly because of those 14 issues, some are a little difficult. So why is it taking so long? So let me just take you through 3 of those. First, capacity. We needed to decide whether we have and will have the capacity to do this. If the Wine Society offers a service, it has to offer that service to all its members. It can't just be for a small team on the community who know what they're doing. So we would have to open it up to all our members and let them know that there is a facility somewhere that if they had wines in reserves, they could sell them to other members. We had to know what guidelines to put around that, which are the most difficult things. So do we have the capacity to do that? Well, we are keeping costs very, very tight at the moment. You saw when Emily gave that answer to our administrative costs. We have a very lean team, and they're all very busy. They don't have many spare quarters of an hour, and we worked out that every single time this transfer takes place, or a transfer takes place, it will take an employee about a quarter of an hour to do. So it's a time-consuming administrative task because our systems aren't set up for it. They're set up to sell wine to members. They're not set up to do this cross-transfer. And just as we're beginning an 18 months adoption of an enterprise resource planning and warehouse management system, we are not going to be changing our systems to help that. So it's a manual system. And that takes time. Not many of our employees have spare quarters of an hour, and certainly not spare hours. So we've had to think very carefully about whether we really could do this. And then assuming we can find the capacity, it has a cost. So we had to think what's to be fair to other members. We don't want to be using our team to do. So that has a cost. We've had to try and work out what that cost should be. Some of the answers to the other questions are not perfect because, again, our systems aren't perfectly set up for this. So we've just had to work out what could be a make round the issue. And finally, we do have to make sure that this doesn't impact adversely on our general accounting and tax issues. And so we will have to take some outside advice on that. So we do want to help. This question has been raised by a number of people. We do want to help if we can. We've not been ignoring it. In fact, I think we spent an aggregate significant amount of time on this. And it does benefit at the moment only a very relatively small part of the membership, although that will potentially change once we let people know that this is available. We believe we have now reached an internal position on all the issues, and we've begun to talk to our advisors, and hopefully we can get their advice soon. But I cannot tell you exactly when that will be. But once it's obtained, and assuming it confirms we can do this, we can put to members the process and a set of guidelines and terms and conditions on which we would facilitate members transferring their wines in their reserves to other members. So I hope for those members who've asked that is helpful. Now, there was a question right back up there, which is number one again.
Thank you. My question is, it's a question about delivery, but would you ever consider delivering to China? Because I have a friend there who's spending a lot of money drinking the finest Bordeaux's, but doesn't know anything about wine and is just drinking the most expensive wines. And I'm wondering if you could, she's going to come here and I'm going to introduce her to the society. And I'm wondering if, she asked me, can we get delivery in China? That's my question, yes or no?
We, apart from the logistics of China, we don't any longer deliver to anywhere outside the United Kingdom. We made that decision 2 years ago. It just became very, very difficult, very, very expensive. And members who were living, even in Europe, found the cost just prohibitive for us to do that. And so what we said to members is if you do want your reserves delivered outside, you're much better giving them to somebody else who does this for you. I think that's it. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, I'm aware that we're running out. The only one more question I think I'd like to raise that's been raised online is in relation to half bottles. There's one over there in a minute. Okay. In relation to half bottles and why we don't have more half bottles. Pierre.
You can hear me, good. Yeah, the question was specifically around, I think, half bottles of fine wine. So we currently list about 50 half bottles, and we've got new society ones coming on. I think we've got the broadest range of half bottles, but as I said, the question was specifically about fine wine, and are we going to have in our Christmas fine wine catalogue a mixed case of half bottles of fine wine, and we are indeed going to have a mixed case. The other thing that's just worthy of mentioning is that this year, for our Bordeaux en primeur campaign, Matthew Horsley introduced the option to buy half bottles for pretty much, I think, all of the top chateaus that we offered this year, and it proved a really popular format. So it is on our radar. We have quite a big range, and look out for the Christmas fine wine list.
Thank you. There's a gentleman right up on the far left.
Nigel Black, 129014. Has the micro-banding of alcohol duty accelerated the trend towards purchasing of lower alcohol volume wines?
You want to do it? Yeah.
Carry on. So I'll answer from the sort of commercial perspective, and then Pierre will have a point of view on what's happening in the market. But no, we haven't seen any significant movement in members' purchasing habits, but nor have we changed our buying or our range in order to weight one way or the other. We're buying the wines that we believe in.
Yeah, and what's worth just sharing here with the room is that as soon as that new structure which was introduced, which does bring a lower tax for lower alcohol wines, our buyers that were out in the field, we're often visiting at times when we're trying to get hold of wine before our competitors. And some of those competitors are pretty big. And what I can tell you is that all of the supermarkets are going out in swathes asking their wine producers to do something that is very, very heavy-handed in reducing alcohol. So it takes alcohol out of the wine. It's called spinning cone. It's a very industrial process. And we think it also has an impact on the flavor of wine. So we're not doing that. What we are doing, though, is keeping our eyes open for wines that are naturally made at lower alcohol levels, using techniques in vineyards, using special yeasts, so that quality isn't compromised.
Yeah, and over there.
I wish I had longer arms than the amount of flailing. But anyway, Jason Aspel, I don't know what my number is, but it doesn't matter. It was really interesting during your address, Alan. There was a couple of things that you mentioned, and I was like, cool, I want to ask a question about that. You talked about like modernity and also like AI, but then you also talked about your systems. So I have a feeling I'm not going to get the answer that I want, but I'd be really interested just to understand whether or not you're using AI, ML, kind of what your data looks like. What does the future look like? Like where do you expect to be able to use that to help to support the business?
Thank you. So Steve.
Yeah, so when Alan references our systems, actually we've got some and some. So we have some tremendously old legacy systems which we're in the process of updating. But having said that, the rest of our system technology is really quite advanced. And these are using applications that we haven't built, but that others have. And we're using them all over the business. So certainly the things that you would expect, like web experience and optimization. Lots of analytics in terms of serving us with next best actions for what, based on what members are doing. Channel optimization, new member acquisition, customer relationship management, and the way in which we probably won't get to this question, but lots of people are dissatisfied with how many emails we send out. Obviously, using these AI-based applications will enable us to make selections much smarter. Predictive sales and inventory analysis, our supply chain teams use it for route planning and effective route maintenance. We're starting now to investigate automation processes. Our content team use it not to write, because we have some wonderful writers, but of course, chat enables us to do it. So We're not building it. We're using partners who are specialists in the area, but AI is a big part of our future, and we're using it a lot now.
I'm going to draw the questions to a close now because time's getting on, and I'm sure many, not all of us, would like to hear what Pierre's got to say and then pop into the tasting. So if I could move now to the agenda items, and let me explain how that will work and the voting. Voting will take place in the room by members using the devices they were given as they registered. They're a bit fiddly, as they were last year, but if you want to vote in favour of a proposal, you press the number 1, and if you want to vote against, press the number 2. And if you got it wrong the first time, just press the other one. That takes you back. Those online can vote following the instructions on your screen. Because the voting is coming in live, online, and in the hall, I will ask you to vote on a resolution, and then after allowing a few minutes, I will actually say the voting is now ended, and in between that is when the votes will come in. I will normally be able to see in real time the votes coming in here. So the first item on the agenda is the adoption of the accounts. Members are asked to adopt the accounts for the last financial year, ending 31st January 2025, and I would be grateful if you could indicate whether you are happy to do so. Please now vote.
Mine was the same, actually. Pull it out and pop it back in again. And mine worked.
The time for voting has now ended, and I can declare that the accounts have been adopted by 852 votes to 6 against. The second item is the co-option of David Whiteman and Sam Day. Under Rule 27, the committee co-opts members onto the committee subject to confirmation of those appointments at the next AGM. David was co-opted onto the committee in July last year for a term of 1 year. His career focused on people and organisation development in international companies, making a range of products from cars to beer. He's lived in the UK, Europe and the Far East and brings a wealth of experience to the committee. Could I ask you to confirm David's co-option from that date? Please now vote. The time for voting has now ended, and I can declare that David's co-option has been approved by 842 for and 16 against. The third item is the co-option of Sam Day, and Sam Day, we co-opted Sam in July 2024 for a period of 1 year, but unfortunately Sam has unexpectedly had to move abroad because of his job and has had to resign from the committee, which is a great disappointment for us. But I'm still required to ask the AGM's consent to the fact that we did co-opt him. So could I ask you to... I know. I would normally say I didn't write the rules, but actually I did on this one. But they were there for an awfully long time before I did that. So please now vote. and the time for voting has now ended, and I can confirm, with a little bit of a protest vote at having to vote at all, I think, that 721 voted for and 114 voted against. Fortunately, Sam is in Berlin, so we'll never know. The third item is the election of Thomas Foster and Catherine Nunn. Thomas was first co-opted onto the committee in 2018 and elected in 2019. As well as serving on the committee, Thomas is a member of the People Subcommittee. His background is in developing and implementing business strategy and digital transformation for consumer businesses. He's retiring by rotation and is standing for election. Catherine Nunn. Catherine was appointed an elected member by the committee in November 2024 under Rule 26.1 to fill the vacancy arising on the retirement of Ricardina Sariolo. She has spent her career for the past 10 years at board level in retail and is currently the chief executive of Lakeland, the kitchenware business. She's retiring pursuant to Rule 26.2 and is standing for election. No other member standing as an elected member. I'm delighted to confirm Thomas and Catherine's election. Finally, committee remuneration. Pursuant to Rule 40, committee members, other than the chief executive, who receives nothing for being on the committee, are paid the fees from time to time decided by the general meeting. Last year's AGM replaced the previous cumbersome and opaque fee system with a much more sensible system of fixed amounts. For the last financial year, committee members, other than the chair and deputy chair, received £7,500, with a possible extra £2,500 for also serving on the subcommittee and a possible extra £2,500 for chairing a subcommittee. The deputy chair received £22,300 and the chair £44,600. It's been the practice to increase committee fees in line with any increase awarded to staff in the annual pay review. For this year, we awarded the staff a 3% pay review, and it's proposed that an increase of the same amount, same percentage, be applied to each category of committee fees for the financial year starting in February 2025. I would be grateful if you could now indicate whether you're happy to approve this. Please now vote. The time for voting has now ended, and I can confirm the proposal is carried by 816 votes in favour and 47 against. Before everyone rushes out to the tasting, Pierre is going to say a few words, but I can confirm that the business of the 2025 Annual General Meeting of the Wine Society is now concluded. I would like to thank everyone for their attendance, wish you all a wonderful evening, and look forward to meeting people at the tasting, and I declare the meeting closed. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Alan. You've been so patient. I know you're waiting for the tasting. I just want to update you on a few things that have been happening from the Society's buying team perspective. It's been a year of a lot of change. We've had 3 new talented buyers joining the team. And, you know, on reflection, changes like that can often be quite disruptive. But the way the team has come together, sharing knowledge, supporting one another and staying focused on sourcing the best wines for our members has been really, really impressive. And I've been genuinely proud to see their work recognised beyond the Society with the 2 industry awards that Alan mentioned earlier. Just a couple of wine topics I'd like to touch on. First is the economics of wine production, because it really does continue to present real challenges for our growers. And that actually led us to have a really close look, take a look at our sub £10 range of wines, just to make sure that they continue to meet the standards our members expect. So we recently tasted through 130 of these, And the results were encouraging. What really shone through was the character of the wines, bright fruit, true to grape and region, with none of the sugar-heavy shortcuts you often find in mass market wines. Sugar is used to mask a lack of real flavour. The other thing about the under £10 range was that the Society's label really stood out like a beacon. I think that's because we have been able to hold the prices of those wines now. It's the third year in a row of holding those prices. We haven't asked our suppliers to reduce their cost price to us. In fact, most of them have gone up in cost. So we're taking a smaller margin, but holding those prices. And in that under 10 category, they really shine. Our sustainability team, Dom DeVille and Simon Mason, who are both here today and a part of the tasting, they've played a really key role in helping our buyers focus not just on wine quality, but also on the environmental and social credentials of the wines we buy. I think we're the only UK buying team that has targets for bottle weights. And last year, there's no doubt that that helped us cut 250 tons of glass from our range and remove 850 kilos of plastic and metal capsules from bottles. We're also doing a lot behind the scenes to focus on the human side of wine. It matters to us that everyone involved in making the wines we list is treated fairly. A few weeks ago, wine writer Jancis Robinson shared a striking reminder in the Financial Times. With the average UK bottle price costing £6.63, £4.20 of that goes straight to the government in tax. Once you factor in packaging, transport and retailer margins, that leaves just 64p for the wine itself. So that's hardly enough, really, to ensure fair wages or decent working conditions. At the Society, we do have a handful of wines under £7. And as soon as I read that article, I did the maths and I checked our range, and I'm proud to say that we pay our suppliers double that amount. And that's possible because we're a mutual. And we can operate having much lower margins than our competitors. Alan also mentioned our climate and nature programme. Since its launch, I've received dozens of messages from our growers praising the initiative. But perhaps my most memorable moment was meeting Johan Reineke, one of South Africa's leading fine wine producers. We helped fund 2 projects of his, mulching on 3.5 hectares of old vine Chenin Blanc, planted in 1976, to help preserve and protect these precious vines. And we sponsored a parcel of his land to be rewilded with native plant species. He came to our Stevenage HQ last month to present his new range to the team, and he was visibly emotional, tears of joy in his eyes as he spoke about what the support, our support, meant to him. And it was really a powerful reminder of the positive impact we can have. Now to tonight's tasting. So the theme of tonight's tasting is really about doing the right thing for the vineyard, the environment, the people involved, and for members. So each wine has been selected because it's either organic, biodynamic, regenerative, or made with minimal intervention in the winery. And what unites all of the wines this evening is a shared philosophy, one that is highly observant and attentive in the vineyard, but light touch and confident in the cellar. There are 12 wines tonight on show. They come from all over the world. Classics like Bordeaux, Beaujolais and the Rhone to Italy, Australia, Greece and Chile. And each one reflects the work of our wine producers, who are really farmers. We don't buy from factories, we buy from farmers. Some good news is that all the wines tasted tonight will be available to purchase with a 10% discount for the next 7 days. We'll be looking closely at how much of that orange wine is purchased. Now, just before you leave your seat, a few practical notes. So for those joining who are online at the moment, the virtual tasting will start shortly. For everyone here in person, You are at the largest single session tasting the Wine Society has ever put on, which is great, but comes with logistical challenges. So the tasting is conducted over 2 levels this evening. For guests who are exiting from doors 1 and 2 to my left, you'll be guided to the lower ground floor. Guests exiting doors 3 and 4 to my right, and those seated up in the stalls, will be guided upstairs to the ground floor. Both tastings are the same wines on both levels. Can you please leave your voting devices on your chair before you leave, and have a wonderful tasting. Thank you.